Hi everyone, Violet here, and I guess this isn't really so much a video as it is a podcast. Anyway, so what's going on is that I am in a book club in the real world offline. Not that people online aren't real, but you get my point. And it's a Romantasy book club. And the book we are currently going to read is Heartless Hunter by Kristen Ciccarelli. And I'm going to read this over the week. I'm starting on Monday the 11th. Our meeting is on the 17th, so I need to get through this book pretty quickly. So I'm going to try to get through a fifth of it today. So yeah, that's my goal. Will I stick enough with this recording thing to actually be able to get my thoughts and feelings throughout? We'll see. I'm going to try. This seems like a fun thing to do. And so, okay, let me go ahead and read the blurb for this. Enemies to lovers doesn't get more high stakes than a witch and a witch hunter falling in love in best-selling author Kristen Ciccarelli's latest romantic fantasy. On the night Rune's life changed forever, blood ran in the streets. Now, in the aftermath of a devastating revolution, witches have been diminished from powerful rulers to outcasts, ruthlessly hunted due to their waning magic, and Rune must hide what she is. Spending her days pretending to be nothing more than a vapid young socialite, Rune spends her nights as the Crimson Moth, a witch vigilante who rescues her kind from being purged. When a rescue goes wrong, she decides to throw the witch hunters off her scent and gain the intel she desperately needs by courting the handsome Gideon Sharp. He's a notorious and unforgiving witch hunter loyal to the revolution, and too late, Rune realizes she might be falling for him. Gideon loathes the decadence and superficiality Rune represents, but when he learns the Crimson Moth has been using Rune's merchant ships to smuggle renegade witches out of the Republic, he inserts himself into her social circles by pretending to court her. He soon realizes that beneath her beauty and shallow facade is someone fiercely intelligent and tender who feels like his perfect match. Except, what if she's the very villain he's been hunting? Dun dun dun. Okay, so I think I saw something about this, but I'm pretty sure this is a Scarlet Pimpernel inspired story, which is really funny because I literally just finished reading that yesterday, or I guess rereading it for a different book club, a book club with some of my writing friends, and this is what the Scarlet Pimpernel, the original, is one of my friend's favorite books. So wild, we've got Scarlet Pimpernel. It's a Scarlet Pimpernel week, I guess. For those of you who don't know what the Scarlet Pimpernel is, it's set during the French Revolution, and the Scarlet Pimpernel is basically a guy who uses a bunch of disguises and like a lot of cunning in order to scurry French aristocrats out of Paris, or I guess out of France in general, to avoid them being killed by la guillotine. And it's fun. There are parts of it that have not aged well. It is from 1905 after all, but it was a good time overall. And I'm curious about how she adapts this, because like the Crimson Moth thing and like this getting everyone out, like the previous ruling class, like this is all very Scarlet Pimpernel-y. So I'm curious how this is gonna play out. I'm intrigued. And yeah, I guess I will get back to you after I finish I'm going to try to get through a fifth of it each weekday. So I'm going to try to get through 80 pages. If I feel inspired to read more than that, then that's cool. But yeah, I will get back to you once I've got through roughly a fifth of it. And we'll see how I feel. Okay, so I've gotten through the first quarter of Heartless Hunter. I don't feel like I have a lot of really concrete thoughts so far, but basically, Rune is the adopted granddaughter of this very wealthy witch named Nan, who Rune's big trauma is that she had to turn her grandmother in when the magical French Revolution happened. To prevent both of them from dying. So as a result of this, she has been like labeled as a true witch hater. She basically got all of her grandmother's fortune and money, etc., etc., and is using this and her sort of vapid socialite persona to basically use magic and basically have a cover for smuggling witches out of the Republic. So there is a witch named Seraphina who she is trying to find because her grandmother told her to track down this woman, but she's been taken by the hotshot witch hunter who also, I think, led the revolution, the magic revolution in this one. His name is Gideon Sharp. He is our hero. He is tall and dark and handsome. He's not black. There is a character who's black as a side note. He's described as having ochre skin, and I was like, is that supposed to be a like brown skin? And it is. Maybe we should just use the term brown skinned. I'm fine with that, you know? But anyway, so Gideon he is tall, he's got black hair, he's got serious eyes, he's the serious one, he's obsessed with hunting witches, and seemingly due to some childhood trauma, he killed the sister queen witches, of which there were 3 of them, seemingly had some sort of particular trauma attachment situation to one of them named Cressida. And so that's his big trauma. We don't entirely know what the deal is with that yet. We also have he has a younger brother named Alex, who is very clearly in love with Rune. And Rune also has a friend named Verity. And so the 3 of them kind of work together to scurry these witches out of the Republic. So our setup is that Rune feels like she needs to get married in order to get more information, and is sort of like she's like, maybe I should go for Gideon, because if I manage to play the game correctly, then he will be a great fountain of information for me to use. Meanwhile, Gideon has reason to believe that Rune is somewhat connected to the Crimson Moth, who is the character who's scurrying all of our witches out of the Republic. And so he has decided to go undercover as a suitor for her. And so they're sort of like cat and mousing each other at this point. Which that is fun. I do appreciate that both of them are lying to each other and trying to get one over on the other. That's very fun. There are some interesting things with class here, this is a thing with the Scarlet Pimpernel as well, which is that, you know, I think we all understand that, like, the French Revolution's decision to sort of slaughter all French royals wholesale was not a great moral thing, but I think we're also a little more aware of the material things that led to the French Revolution being a thing, right? How people were like starving and how that's not great. And that's like a really violent, visceral reaction, but it's not a thing that came out of nowhere. And I think what's interesting about this is I'm curious how we're going to land with regards to the witches, because our heroine does have magic powers, but she's sort of using lesser magics because those are harder to detect for hunters. And so she doesn't have the like wild powers that some of the previous regime did. And so our example of what magic is really like really small scale compared to what it seems like Gideon was dealing with before things popped off and what a lot of people were dealing with. So I'm just curious how we're going to land with regards to how we're supposed to feel about the witches getting murdered. Because Gideon on the one end is like, all witches are monsters and terrible, and Rune is like, witches didn't deserve any of this. And I feel like the answer is probably a little more in the middle, which is like a lot of witches probably abuse their magic in very uncomfortable ways. And so removing them from power might be okay in some capacity, but the way that it's been handled overall is like really violent and bad and not great. So I don't know, it's interesting. I'm curious how they're gonna figure that out. I also have some theories, like basically Rune's grandmother, Nan, had an escape plan, but it got found out by someone. Someone found it and someone reported it to the authorities, which is part of why Rune has to turn her in to save her own skin. Which her grandmother tells her to do, by the way. So it's not like as grim and dark as you might imagine, where she just like is ruthless about it. She's like pretty upset, but her grandmother's like, no, we gotta do this because I don't want you to die in front of me. So I have a theory about who done it. I'm not gonna say that because I feel like that would be spoilery. This is all like the first quarter, so I don't feel like I've really spoiled anything particularly important here. But yeah, it's cute. It's fun. It's kind of lightweight. It's fast paced. And I'm intrigued about where it's gonna go in the next section. So I finished Heartless Hunter in 2 sittings, which is pretty impressive for a like 400-page book for me. I was planning on like taking this as like quarter at a time, and I was like, you know what? I can just roll through the back of this, and I did. This was so fun. Like, I think I've had not great luck with Romantasy for the most part. So my expectations on this were like a bit low. I was trying to go in open-minded, but this was just so rompy and fast-paced. Like, I think the characters were like not the most complicated, but they at least had some pretty clear motivations. I felt like their bad choices they made were understandable bad choices. There was a lot of like relationship drama. It kind of reminded me of this like older, I guess not older, sort of previous generation of YA. I guess at this point 2 generations of YA old. It's this book called The Luxe by, I think her name is Anna Godberson. It's sort of set in the Gilded Age, and I would describe it as like Gossip Girl, but in the Gilded Age. And so, you know, there's just a lot of like ball gowns and drama, and everyone's like got big feelings and making terrible choices. And you're like, God, you children, please make better choices. But I'm also kind of eating it up. There's a bit of like that popcorn eating energy while you're watching these people make terrible choices. And that was such the vibe of this. Like, Rune and Gideon are both, and Alex to some extent, and Verity, they're all just like chaotic people dealing with like class difference and like love that isn't working. And like the great part of it is that both Rune and Gideon are basically trying to play each other for information and then falling in love in the process, and just they're just so bad at recognizing that. And it was very fun the whole time. And then, of course, naturally, they keep bonding at different points. It was just really fun. And then in terms of the overall plot, I had like a couple guesses for who the big bad was, but it took me a minute to figure out who it was. Like, it was I think it was like the last 40 pages where I kind of like, it was like, oh, this is the bad guy. Okay, cool. So I think it's pretty unclear on when, or like there's enough misdirects to sort of help you think, okay, maybe it could be this person, maybe it could be this person. The way it ends is like really cliffhangery, and there's like a big shocking like, oh no moment that we have, a real dark moment, if you will. I am genuinely curious about what's going to happen in book 2, because yeah, things end on a wild note here. I'm trying to not spoil this. How do people talk about books without spoiling them like this? Anyway, yeah, really fun. Definitely my favorite book that's like been billed as romantasy so far. And yeah, I really enjoyed this one. Would recommend. It's a good time. So yeah, thank you all for listening to me yap about this book, and I'll talk to you later. Bye!